Good evening, Heart for the Community. Good evening, Facebook. Good evening, everyone. Even for those of you who are catching this on YouTube on Carl's Conversation, because we're broadcasting there too. We thank you so much for coming in again and joining us. Welcome back to another installment of the Heart for the Community Initiative interview series. I am your host, Carl Armstrong. I do serve as the Director of Operations for Heart for the Community Initiative. And we have a super duper duper guest today. I'm so honored to have Supervisor Victor Angry, who is the Neabsco District Supervisor on the Prince William County Board of Supervisors. He has graced us today with his presence. And just before we bring him on, I'm just going to remind you, if you're catching this on the Heart for the Community Facebook page, or you're catching it on my page, Carl Armstrong, please take a moment to share. Start a watch party. If you live in Supervisor Angry's district, you need to start calling people and texting them and messaging them on Facebook and let them know that your supervisor is about to be interviewed. And he's probably going to say something that you need to hear. So please take a moment and do that. And if you have not already liked and or followed the Heart for the Community Initiative Facebook page, please do that. We are the voice of the community. And we bring you this interview series to keep you informed of all manner of things going on in the Northern Virginia community, especially in Prince William, Stafford, and Spotsylvania counties. So with that, we say, welcome, Supervisor Angry. Thank you so much for accepting our interview request.
Thank you, Carl. You're very welcome. First of all, I want to say, I don't know about the super duper duper part, okay? but I am honored to be here. And I got to tell you, you are the first person, maybe the second, to get it right in the Neabsco district and not Neabsco. So
oh, wow.
I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for that, sir.
Well, there is a difference.
Yeah,
reading is fundamental.
Not gonna go there, but thank you for the Neabsco district. And yes, it is a honor to be on your show right now. So thank you.
Wonderful. Supervisor, for those who don't know your story, would you take a minute to just tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Hey, Carl, can I do this here? Because I feel like you were talking to me too. Can I go to my Facebook page and start a watch party and get
You sure can? Absolutely. Please.
So okay, you said Heart
for the Community is the heart, the number 4.
Okay.
The Community Initiative. Matter of fact, if you go to Facebook and just put in H4TCI, it'll take you right there.
I see initiative.
And
I got to get
Heart for the Community. And if you scroll down, you'll see the matter of fact, you'll see us. Make sure you turn your volume down because there's like a 4 or 5 second delay. Okay. And you'll see us talking and you can share it. So once again, for all of y'all who are on already and you're watching this, make sure that you let everybody know that Supervisor Angry is live. And this is not taped. This is live broadcast. Let them know that he's on.
I don't mean to pause like that, but I feel
no. You did the right thing. You see, he's taking care of y'all even in this. He's looking out for his constituents. We appreciate it, and I'm sure they do too.
Now, how do I do a watch party on that, though? I'm here. I see me.
Do you see the little tab that says watch party? Mm-hmm. If you don't see that tab, just do share and share it to your page.
Yeah, okay. See, you're amazing. Thank you.
It's all right. It's all right. If you share it to your page, they'll see the live broadcast.
Okay, so I just did that. All right, now
there it is. There it is. So we just asked Supervisor Angry, for those who are not familiar with him, he's going to give you a little bit of his background. Also, please, if you have questions or comments while we're doing this, please bring them forth and we'll take care of it while we're on the air. Go ahead, Supervisor Angry.
All right. Thank you again, Carl. I apologize for that delay. I just wanted to make sure I did my part for that. So my name is Victor Angry. I've been on the Board of County Supervisors now for roughly 18 months. I won a special election when Supervisor John Jenkins passed away, and that made me actually the first African American to be on the Prince William County Board of Supervisors. Again, that's been since about 18 months. Prior to that, I spent 23 years in the Army, so I'm a retired Command Sergeant Major. Pride and joy, I will always be a Command Sergeant Major. I will always take care of troops. This is, I'm no stranger to leadership. I actually truly believe I'm walking in my purpose of leadership. And so it's very comfortable for me to be in this position. There's still a lot to learn, so I don't take this lightly. I'm not arrogant about any of it, but I'm very comfortable being here. I'm also a volunteer firefighter with the Dale City Volunteer Fire Department. What's up, Dale City? I do believe in giving back. It's never been about money for me. It's always been about people. And so in the short version of all of that, that is me. I'm from Altamont Springs, Florida, which is Orlando, Florida, down the way. And 52 years old, loving life, feeling good. And that is it in a nutshell. Thank you, sir.
All right. Now we know you. Thank you.
All right.
Well, Supervisor Angry, I brought you on so that we could inform the community about some things that are going on in Prince William County, because there's so much with COVID-19, all of the demonstrations, trying to figure out whether these children can go back to school or not. There's so much going on, and I want the community to hear it straight from one of our supervisors. So I want to start, if you don't mind, as much as you can tell us about the county's posture and position with COVID-19. And any updates?
Yeah. In the beginning, one of the things that was concerning for me is that I felt that we were, if you use the analogy of football, we were playing on the defense, trying to figure out what this thing was and is. And in many ways, we still are. But since then, and we've gone through almost 4 months of this, we now have data, collected data, to really try to analyze and figure out what we can do. So I call that the playbook. So we basically have a playbook. So on that playbook, I feel like we're on the offense a little bit. And what we've done now, just in Prince William County, to catch up real quick, is we've taken over our own testing of COVID-19. So we've invested in the test kits, which is another issue in itself. But the state was providing that service for us. But we've since invested in it ourselves. And we have our EOC, Emergency Operations Center, taking lead to identify locations where testing is available. Then we have our communications director and our communications department broadcast those, and each supervisor broadcasts that information of the locations and times where this testing is, in the hopes that people who are feeling like they have symptoms can go get tested. Then we can isolate them. You do the whole 14-day or whatever that's going to be to get them back in a good place, and also start a contact tracing to find out the places they've been, so we can reach out to those people and try to at least contain the spread. Now, whether or not that's going to be enough, again, this is all new to everybody in the world, and so at least it gives us a playbook that we can start trying to identify or paint a picture of what COVID-19 really is. And so that's where we are in the county now. So if you go to our county website and just click on the COVID-19, I think a box will pop up right there for you. It'll show you those testing locations. If there's a let's say a church or any type of community facility that wants to do some testing and has a group that want to be a part of that, you can reach out to any of us. Reach out to me, or just again, go to the pwc.gov or whatever we'll get you the website. Go to the website and COVID-19 will pop up, and it'll tell you how to get in touch with EOC if you want to be a part of the testing process of that. So hopefully, we're hoping through this we can at least try to contain this. We're going to be at this for a while. I don't even have an answer for what a while means or what it looks like, but in the interim of that, we have to be diligent and do our part. So that's what we're doing.
All right. Well, let me ask, in Prince William County, are you facing some of the same issues with turnaround times that some of the other localities around the nation are facing?
No, we are not. I think we have a good process going now. I wish I had Brian Missler on the line with me now to do this, but maybe we'll do this again to get a better data. And Dr. Ansher, who is our physician for this area, medical director for this area, that's kind of monitoring this, we got a pretty good handle. So our testing all goes down to Richmond. They feel really good with how they're processing. I got to tell you, I don't like the test because this rod up your nose. I don't know if you've had it done. I had it done just because I was part of that process. I came back negative, just so you know. But God, that rod up the nose is so interesting.
Not pleasant.
It's supposed to be a saliva one that's coming out. I don't know. We're very comfortable with what we're doing now because it actually works. So I don't know how well that saliva test will be. But right now, we're in a good place in Prince William County with our testing. If
Wonderful.
it wasn't for all of the rain, we had to cancel a few events because the storms rolled through, and it was kind of last minute, so it kind of deterred a few people because they were out there waiting. And we have people showing up for these events. So I will say, if you need testing, go to the website, find those locations, and any location, no matter what district you live in, you can go to any location and get tested, just as long as you're a Prince William County resident. And I don't know if we've been turning away anybody that hasn't been from Prince William County, but it's designed for Prince William County.
Wonderful. So audience, make sure you got that. If you live in Prince William County and you want to be tested for COVID-19, please go to the Prince William County government website. You should be able to click on the COVID-19 button and you'll get information from there. Thank you so much for that, Supervisor Angry. Yes, sir.
I could just on this final note, the data is in. And so our Latino, Hispanic population, our African American population are hardest affected by this. So even though we've been at this for a while, people are starting to slide back into that comfort zone, but those numbers are high. Prince William County's positivity rate is 8.4. I believe the state is down to 7. It's in the 7%. And so we got work to do. So we're not out of this thing yet. And I don't know when we will be. But before it spikes back up to be another huge issue, which I'm not so sure we aren't there. I want people to still be cautious about what's going on and conscious about mask wearing, washing your hand, follow CDC guidelines. Let's do this until there's a vaccine out there so we can really put this behind us and get back to life as normal.
That's right. And please don't let people influence you negatively. Mask wearing is not a matter of politics. It is a matter of health and safety. And I didn't cross the line on either side. My doctor told me to wear a mask. And I don't know what political party he belongs to. All right. So thank you. We appreciate that update. Thank you so much for that. So another hot topic is school openings. Where does the county stand with school openings at this point?
Yeah. Before I get into that, I want people to understand the two systems we have here. We have the Board of County Supervisors and we have the school board and the school administration. And we're separate. What the Board of County Supervisors does is funds the school system with a revenue sharing agreement that keeps them, sustains them with what they need to do. That doesn't mean we don't have conversations and we can't be a part of the process. But when it comes to the decision making, it's a school board decision. And so while we get a lot of emails and phone calls and questions about schools, the ultimate decision about what's happening in the school system lies with the schools and with the school board and the school administration. Right now, the first quarter is going to be online learning. There was a special board meeting yesterday, and I apologize because I've been wrapped up in a few other things this morning that I didn't get to follow up on it to see about our special needs teachers and I think somebody in the ESOL. So I don't know the decision on that, but the right now the plan is for the first quarter of Prince William County schools to be conducted online. So that's the laptops and they're working on the software and there's a lot going on in that. We've been working on having joint meetings with the school board and Board of County Supervisors to really, in this COVID-19 world, make sure we're all read in on the information that's going on. So I expect right now we're on a little break, and then September we'll get back to the board meetings that we'll be getting an update from the school systems on where we're going with that.
All right, that is awesome. I appreciate that update too. And we'll have to get somebody on from the school board. I really do want to do that to get updated information. That is a big topic, and parents and students alike want to know. That affects everybody. Yeah. So, of course, another hot button issue is the amount of protest activity going on in the county. I know all of it does not fall under the umbrella of Black Lives Matter. So whatever they want to call it, the fight for equality, criminal justice reform, I'm learning they can call it whatever they want to call it. But we do know that there are protests around the county. Where does the county sit with that? What's the mood of the county, do you think, as we go through this trying time in our nation?
And let me speak on the county first, and then we can take it to the nation and around the globe. We started on a rough note, and that was that May 30th. As you know, there was a protest in Manassas that turned into a riot that brought out the state police, that caused a lot of other issues and incidents. And since then, the police department has a better grasp on how they would handle protests. And I got to say, since May 30th, they've really gone out of the way to support First Amendment rights, people's right to protest, and guarding those organizations. Doesn't mean everything's perfect. So we got a few areas, I guess, of concern that we have to address. The bigger part is where we sit today is, as we were discussing, that this conversation needs to eventually move into, the chambers, into the political arena, into the, into Richmond, into Princeton County, into all the board chambers to talk about policies, guidance. We discussed on the board starting a not a human rights commission, but a racial justice board, if you will, and a commission. And so we're not quite there yet, but we've got it on the agenda, and it's been moving forward. We're putting that together, and the whole goal of that is to really get into an understanding of what has happened over the last 100 years. Say the truth. I mean, what are some of the policies in place? The governor started reaching into all of the legislation that had prejudicial language or injustices against minorities, African American in particular, and started taking those off the books, right? And so a lot of that stuff is systemic. A lot of the problems we deal with are systemic problems, from housing, from school, from medical, services, education, all this stuff. So there's a holistic approach that needs to be looked at on how we clean up the book, so to speak, and make things truly equal, right? So this is where the conversation has begun to shift. Doesn't mean that we still aren't having protests, but we are definitely not having as much as we've had early on in June, in July. And so, but we're still having these dialogues, and it's reaching into the chambers and into the delegation to talk about, reform and what that looks like.
Have any of the protest groups made inroads with the Board of Supervisors or with the county police or sheriff's department so they can begin the conversations about changing policies?
Yes. Yeah. Maybe you missed the board meeting, but we had a pretty heated board meeting with a lot of our young people, and that unfortunately led into some other issues. I can't speak to those currently, but they're in the works right now. But yeah, and I really want that to continue. I know it's tough right now because of some of these issues that have occurred, but those dialogues need to continue. It's like I said before. Anger, we had this discussion earlier with rage, and how do you channel that properly to actually make it worth something holistic that people can learn from, without it being just pain and rage and just wanting to yell and at the top of your voice because it's not happening for you. So I really want that to continue, because truly that process has been occurring over my lifetime. Remember, I was born June 2nd, 1968, roughly 59 days after they assassinated Dr. Martin Luther King. So I was born into, civil unrest and civil rights movement. And to think 52 years later, we're still doing this is, it's very concerning. So in other words, the approach has got to be different. It's got to be the right one this time. We got to do it, because we can't do this again. We really got to fix it this time around. And I do see a lot more involvement from this. Kind of leads into the nation and the world. The nation is upset. The world is upset. This thing has, crossed, the globe, and I feel like we are going to get there this time.
I think so too. I hope so. I'm very hopeful, because I see that there are more people, not just the folks who look like you and I, but people of all hues, all racial backgrounds, all ethnic backgrounds, have stood up with Black people around this nation and said enough is enough. And I would say to those who maybe interview and don't agree or don't understand, if you listen to what Supervisor Angry just said about cleaning up the books, this is 2020, and there are still laws and policies on the books that you can't even argue. We know that they're unbalanced and they're super biased. And why are they still there? And that's why you see some anger protests. Now, I would love to mentor some of the youngsters who have gotten into some of the things of the looting and the violence and stuff like that. But I also think it's very important for us to deal with truth. All of that, matter of fact, much of that was not the protesters.
Right.
There are a lot of groups out there who want to soil the message.
Yes.
And if you go look at the Department of Justice and these state police and local police records, you'll see that many of them have already been apprehended. So I would say study before you make any comments about BLM or the protesters. Make sure that you have an educated discussion and not just speaking out of your emotion or maybe some of the ignorance that you may have come up with. And ignorance is not a bad word. It just means that you don't know. All right.
Can I say this real quick about BLM and Black Lives Matter? You know, a couple of board meetings ago, I introduced that resolution that supported Black Lives Matter, the person, right? And so I got into this heated discussion about Black Lives Matter, the organization, and someone sent me this information about the website being up since 2012, and I just want to make this statement known for everyone to know. I've been Black for the last 52 years. I mean, I was born in 1968. I don't need a website from 2012 to tell me about the injustices that I've gone through and my family's gone through and my kids have to deal with. Because when I say Black Lives Matter, it's about people. Now, I don't want to get caught up in an organization and agendas on an organization when the individual Black person on the street goes through this and deals with this. You know, I talked about, you know, even to this day as a supervisor, when a police car pulls up behind me, I still get a little nervous. And then I say, oh, I'm the supervisor. Still doesn't mean like I'm not going to get into you know, bad situation with them. But I try to realize that, you know, I'm an elected official and I'm in a different place than, you know, than to just being a young kid with I had a Nissan with this loud stereo. And, you know, and so I often flash back to that. But I see the kids today, and the kids in these cars with these loud stereos, guess what? Majority of them not even Black, right? And that's right. Okay. That's okay. But, you know, I look and realize, you know, we got a lot of work to do. But you know, I just bring that point up about the BLM because this is about Black people and this thing that's been going on for so very long. You know, I can't even get into this stuff, but we're going through something right now. And I'm not new to what we're going through right now on this board because I've been challenged by you know, I don't even want to say make it black or white thing, but you know, I had people, you know, try me in all walks in the military from being, you know, a senior NCO where I get brought in for something that I know clearly I didn't do because 60% of my life is my mother telling me what right is and how right I'm going to be, and 40% is I'm Black, so I don't have wiggle room to do wrong because regardless of if I did it a little bit, I'm going to be guilty by association a lot. So therefore, I know what the straight and narrow is. I've been walking it my whole life. So, you know, I don't worry about people bringing bogus charges against me for various reasons, mainly because I know I'm walking the straight and narrow and I'm doing the right thing because it's in my blood to do so. And that's what I've been born by raised by my mother to do, but also I've been trained by society to make sure I stay on the straight and narrow.
That's right. Well, I'll tell you, I'm glad you made that comment about BLM. For those who are familiar with this show and the other show that I do on Carl's Conversation, you know that I've said it many, many times. I am absolutely part of the Black Lives Matter movement. I am not part of the organization, and I don't know anyone who is a part of the organization. I admit that when you read what the organization is about, they have many, many questions to answer. But I think Bishop T.D. Jakes said something, and he was talking to a group of white pastors. And what he said was, The Black Lives Matter movement has now just engulfed and gone way beyond the Black Lives Matter organization. So at this point, is a moot point bringing up all of your negative feelings about the organization. Here's the question. You can call it whatever you want to call it. Do you recognize that there is a problem in this country, historically, institutionally, and systemically, with how Black people have been treated? If your answer is yes, then the next question is, what are you going to do about it? Mm-hmm. And if your answer is no, I would suggest that you may be part of the problem, even though your heart may be pure, but there is some ignorance there. Mm-hmm. And maybe some of it is pure ignorance. Maybe some of it is willful ignorance. But if you don't think Black people have been mistreated, and I don't want to hear your guys had Obama. Mm-hmm. Okay, we had Obama, but look what happened to Mr. Floyd. And I'm not trying to make, derogatory statements, but these are the times that we're in and we need to deal with it. Sir, we have a question. And the question is there a forum for youth, young adults, millennials to meet with police, board of supervisors on a continued basis to bridge the gap to understand both sides and both perspectives?
Yes, there is. Okay, do this. My email, I don't know if you can put this in there.
Sure, I put it in there.
Yeah, so vsangry@pwcgov.org. Right, and then I will link you to the acting chief, Jared Phelps, who actually has conversations. And then I actually have a group that I started that we actually have conversations. Now, the group I started is not just a youth group, but I think, honestly, I would love to have more youth join this group that I have and hear your thoughts, your concerns. Here's a realization I got to realize. I'm not a youth anymore, even though my parents, I'm an 80s kid. I know that seems like old to y'all, but 80s is not old, okay? All right, but my parents brought me through that era, and now I'm a 52-year-old sitting here. I'm realizing that I'm in a position to influence the change on this, but it's not by way of what I think, because the world has changed in the last 20 years. So now I have another group, you all, who are just starting new families, and I find that interesting. So I'd love to hear more from you on your thoughts and what's really happening and what we can do and get you involved. I would love that.
Awesome. I'm glad you answered that question. There is just so much going on with that. And I know you're an elected official. It could put you in a tight spot. But there's a lot going on, not just in the county, statewide, worldwide. But I will say this as an encouragement, as somebody who is working. I belong to a couple of different organizations who are doing very good work in the Stafford and the Spotsylvania areas. We haven't done much work just yet in Prince William County, but we're coming. There's a lot of things happening already in these local city council chambers and county board of supervisor chambers. There's already dialogue with local police departments. Change is coming. And so that segues right into the next thing I want to talk about, criminal justice. Yeah. And we know the criminal justice system has three parts: the courts, law enforcement officials, and the third part just slipped my head. I think about prisons and jails. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to hit on this, and then we're going to keep moving. I know that there's a big move for defund the police, and I just want to make sure I say this to the audience before I give it to you. I am all for reimagining how we police in our nation. And that's not going to be so much a change that comes at the national level. And any change that comes out of Congress is going to chiefly affect law enforcement at the federal level. And it will affect how they fund states and cities. But most of your change that will affect you in your everyday life will come at your local and state level. So I would encourage you to find a group that's working in your area that is working for change. And if you don't see what you like, make a group. You create a group. Yeah. But I don't want to see us. I hate that word, to be quite honest with you, defund. I wish the word was reimagine, because I do think there are some things in policing that we need to change. But I don't want to see police go away. And I'll hand the microphone to you on that one, sir.
Yeah, and I can tell you, police are never going away. Just So, and I think that the word defund is the wrong word. So since I heard that word, I thought, this is a great opportunity, because there was a point in our budget cycle that I was going to introduce increasing the police force, because in truth fact, our police, there are too many citizens for the police that have to kind of manage that area. In other words, that stress level going up. That means they're working extra harder to kind of patrol these areas, and there's a, I won't get there, but anyway, and the issue there becomes the stress on the police officer, and then how are you handling the escalating situations when if in fact you are already stressed anyway. I'm not saying that's the case everywhere, but I'm saying when you have an understaffed police force, of course you're going to overwork them. And that's just a reality. But since that whole defund, I thought, okay, you know what? This is an opportunity for us to start talking about community relations and having community understand what policing is, and policing each other, and even policing the police, so that you can identify those police officers that you feel maybe in a stressed environment or working too hard, or there's a situation that just don't look right, such as that situation we saw with George Floyd. I don't even want to call that police officer's name. The look in his eyes just told me he had no business being on the streets. And the police officers I talked to will say that. And so this allowed me an opportunity to start thinking about, we need to, as you said, Carl, we need to reimagine what this looks like and really get people to understand what it is. There was a time when police officers in the schools were there to be a part of our youth having a relationship with the police, not there with metal detectors to wait for this, a disgruntled kid so we can drag them out of the school. We got to get back to that piece, to where the relationship of what a police officer is there for the people. You know what I'm saying? That police officers are there to protect and serve the people. And guess what? Police officers are nothing more than us everyday citizens. They're somebody's brother, somebody's husband, somebody's son, somebody's dad, somebody's neighbor. And this is what it is. It's us. So we have to get that thing back down to where we understand that, and we back to the community building that is intended to do. Now here's the deal. Doesn't mean that we don't have criminals in our county, in our nation, and we need to have a police agency that can monitor that kind of stuff. I saw this thing about demilitarizing the police. I think that's a great idea. The problem I have with it is, if you look at the Second Amendment right, and you've probably seen how a lot of these, how we went through earlier in the year, there are a lot of people with a lot of big bad guns, and they don't want you to take their guns. And we've been talking about how people can have some of these mental breakdowns, and when they have a house full of guns like that, I mean, that's a bad situation. I don't really have the answer for that, and you are talking to a sergeant major military guy, and so I just want everybody to be protected if a need arose where we had to have a force that could defend the people. And I mean, in a perfect world, I wouldn't want guns, but I got to watch how I say that. There are people who don't like that comment at all. But I put it this way: I don't think defunding the police was it. And I'll tell you the last part about that for me is, I think it allows us an opportunity to do what I said even when we were in budget cycle, which is look at the efficiencies of spending in our county in all agencies. And we may find, which I believe we will, which I know we will, that there's some funds in there that are doing things that don't need to be done, that we can actually move into areas such as community services and mental health awareness and CIT teams and that kind of stuff. So I think it's an opportunity for us to holistically sit down and revamp our budget and look at where the efficiency spending is and put the rest of that into places where it should be.
I think so too. Here's a question from the audience. Matter of fact, this came from my wife. Are police officers required to volunteer their time to interact with youth to rebuild a community relations and trust?
Yeah, I can't answer that question. I'm thinking no, but I would rather let me get that over to Acting Chief Phelps. I'll take that question back and answer. I do know a lot of police volunteer the time anyway. I just don't know if that's mandatory that they have. So.
Right. Well, I tell you, I'm glad that we're having the conversation. It's a conversations that need to be had, and I think that police reform, and I don't have a problem with that phrase at all. I think police reform is going to look a little different in every locale. There are some things that probably need to go across the board. Qualified immunity, that's probably going to have to go. A database so that we know that when we have an errant police officer who is a brutal person, have a history of violence, that they don't go to another jurisdiction and get hired and just terrorize another part of the population. So things like that, I think, are common sense. But I'm with you. No, I don't want to defund the police. That's not the way to do it.
I'm probably going to jump ahead to a question you're going to ask, but we can come back to it later. But I just want to throw in, Delegate Torian actually introduced that bill that basically tracks. They have basically anytime a police officer pulls over anyone, they have to track, who the person was, their ethnicity, their gender, what they stopped them for, was there any force used in the stop, and all of that is to really, to your point, speak to if an officer has been abusive and maybe, let's say, a abuse of force, and you're starting to see that track record show, and that officer had moved to 3 different stations, three different, locales, and has a track record even deeper than that. So it kind of puts a check and balance on that piece. It has some tweaking to do, but I think it's a good idea to just do what you just mentioned, monitoring if we have any reckless officers out there.
Right. And there was a comment just put up by one of our listeners. He asked, do police need some type of law degree? Because there are some citizens who know more than the police. I think that's an interesting question. And I think that you're going to see some of that when it comes to police reform. Now, this is just the world according to Carl. Whenever there's a police interaction with a citizen, that's already a constitutional issue, right? Because you get into search and seizure, yeah, right. And in some states, you have barbers and hairdressers and nail technicians who are required more hours of training for their certification than our police officers are required to complete in the academy. And I want all police officers to know who are watching this. Listen, Carl Armstrong is not anti-police. I love the police. I have a problem with racist police. I have a problem with brutal police. I have a problem with violent police. I have a problem with police who believe that they are the police, the judge, the juror, the prosecutor, and the jailer. I have a problem with those. Good police, love you, want more of you, and I hope that you're encouraged to tell on the bad ones. Anyway, PJ Jackson, I think that's a great point that you made up, sir, that you brought up about police having more education. I am absolutely for that. What that's going to look like, whether it be a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree or some type of specialized training when it comes to constitutional issues. But I will tell you this, I don't believe there needs to be a police officer anywhere on the streets who can't almost recite the Constitution. Because especially the parts dealing with police activities, search and seizure, all that kind of stuff, because we get into a lot of trouble. And I tell you what, these cameras and social media have told on a lot of police.
Well, if it wasn't for them, we probably wouldn't be here right now. If it wasn't for those cameras, the cell phone has really is the catalyst that got us where we are now. But hey, Carl, I got to throw this plug out there because that young man that just asked that question, that's my cousin. That's little Dante. He's a grown man, but I raised that boy from a baby. Love him.
Okay. Oh, that's PJ.
He's about to get married, so congratulations too.
Oh, congratulations, sir.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, I actually had another police officer say the same thing, that he feels that police officers should have a degree, and that's not to say anything about a police officer like they're not educated or anything. Okay, but I get the point that we're making. Doctors have to go through all of this, and maybe that's a point, maybe it's not a point. I don't know. Maybe that's the future of policing. I'm not going to say that it makes our police officers, bad police officers. And I will tell you, as you stated, I would defend my Princeton kind of police officers, and they know they can they have me as their top cover. And I say that because I'm the leadership here. Leadership has to lead. See, this is the difference. Leadership has to lead. So I and 7 other of my board members on the Prince William County Board of Supervisors lead this county, and the police fall under us. To me, it's the biggest problem that got us here in the first place, because I don't mean to throw Minneapolis Council under the bus, but when you have lack of leadership, a lack of oversight, this is what happens with police, with any agency, when you let them run rampant. And so they let that happen, and now this is the result of it. It just didn't affect Minneapolis, it affected the entire world. So I'm leadership here, and I have 7 other leaders with me, but the tone that I set in this is the tone that, I'm very thankful and blessed that, I have a acting chief who understands this and has set the tone that we are projecting to him out to his force, his agency. And I'm telling you what, me speaking, and if they're watching this, reassures the morale of them to go do their jobs, but they know they need to do their job professionally. And the 3 things you just described, Carl, which is, you are not the judge, the juror, or the executioner. You are the police officer who patrols these streets to protect and serve the citizens. And the citizens need to understand that. I think that's a huge piece, because I've seen some disrespectful, citizens that want to ramp up that level of concern. And so we got to avoid that. Just understand we're here to help each other out, man. That's what this is all about.
I want to say it again, because I want police officers who watch this show to know I am pro-police. And we raise our children to be respectful. There's some accountability in the Armstrong household when it comes to dealing with any authority figure and any adult, but especially law enforcement. But I want law enforcement to also know there is a fear in the Black community. My son is 23. He's just about to move out in a couple of weeks and spread his wings. But my wife will not send him to the store for anything. Her greatest fear is that him being a young Black man, he'll get stopped by the cops and won't make it. And that's not an indictment to police officers. That is an indictment on our experiences, right? I am not law enforcement, never have been. I don't have expertise on law enforcement, but I do have expertise on 48 years of living in this brown skin. And it has not always worked out well for me when facing law enforcement. So, and those are just the facts. So we're not anti-police at all, but we can love you and still say that there needs to be some positive changes, right? I tell you, this is a popular part of our conversation. We're getting a lot of questions. There was one more question. Are all police required to complete de-escalation training? And I guess you could maybe answer that for Prince William County.
I can say that, yes. The question is how often, right? That's the real question. Because if you do that in your academy, you only go to academy one time. So if you're a 20-year police officer, you did it once. So that's where this new, when we talked about not defunding police, but what was the word you used?
Reimagining.
Yeah, reimagining police. That's some of the training that we need to put in. But here's the deal. All of that stuff is a budget item. Nothing is free, folks, right? We get it. But I would rather invest in de-escalation training, right, than I guess the whole demilitarizing thing. So than buying some of these armored vehicles. I do believe that every agency needs a special weapons, SWAT team, if you will.
Yes.
And that's a specialized group. So it's not every police officer has this, but I do believe that you do need that, because again, let's not kid ourselves. I had a gentleman ask me once, he said, if the Army can buy a tank, I should be able to buy a tank. I just don't agree with that.
No, sir. I'm sorry.
I just don't agree with that comment. But he says that's the Second Amendment right. And you know what? I mean
a tank? You need a tank for home defense. What you got in there, bro?
Wow, okay. But again, anyway, so that's, yeah.
Well, I want people to know that criminal justice reform is not just police reform. there is much reform to do when it comes to our courts
Yeah.
with sentencing. I could read you all kind of studies. I do study this stuff about how Black people are 6 times more likely to be arrested, and we do more jail time for the same crimes. So, and then even when it comes to the incarceration rates, the small percentage of Black Americans that make up the total population in this country, but the very large percentage of Blacks and Latinos that make up prison population. And I think that we are educated enough and astute enough to know that Blacks and Latinos are not born with a predisposition to crime, right? So if we accept that, then we know that there's a problem systemically, and we need to address all of it. And I'm hoping that we do that.
Yeah. If I could chime in on criminal reform too, Prince County never had a public defender's office. Okay. And so now we have one, and Tracy Lennox is heading that up. And so I'm not sure when that's going to be fully functional and operational, but it is funded. It is happening, and that's going to be a good thing. I stopped by a couple of times prior to COVID-19. I stopped by the JDC, our Juvenile Detention Center. And, the Juvenile Detention Center is old. I mean, it is literally, I don't like that building at all. And I get it. When people do crime, we're not there to put them in some Taj Mahal. But I think that's wrong. I do. And so we're at a place now where we need to do something about that center. We've had a lot of discussion that people are saying we need to take that money and give it somewhere else and not rebuild the JDC and do this. The issue is we have people that commit crimes, okay? And some of these crimes might have to be dealt with. And murder is the best example I can give you. To be a young person and commit murder, that's just tragic all the way around. But there's still, you have to pay for that crime. I don't want to put young people in an adult center where your life is destined down the road to just be in prison for the rest of your life. I think when we talk even about reforming police, there's a reform that has to happen with our youth. And I think the whole piece is to make a facility or create, I don't care what you call it, what you do. I even think these kids should come to go to class every day. They should wear, polo shirts. We should teach them how to tie ties. We should teach them how to be productive citizens in society, because regardless of what you want, this is what society is. Without it, what do we have? So there's a way that we need to create that JDC or that juvenile piece that, aside from murder, because I don't know how you can recover from that, but to move them through a process that can send them back into the streets and not make them repeat offenders are going back into the system. We got to stop this cyclic change, and that's my take on that.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's so much work to be done, and I want people to be encouraged. Some of you may not be informed because you may not be involved. And listen, everybody is not going to grab a sign and go hit the streets. If you're not a get in the street protest type person, that's fine. You'd be shocked to know what good you could do with your skills and your talents and your connections with one of these groups that are working for positive change. And like I said again, I encourage you to get involved. And I don't want to mention too much on the air, but if anybody is watching and you want to get involved, you can send me a message. You can send it to Heart for the Community Initiative, or you can send it to me on Facebook at Carl Armstrong. You'll find me on Facebook, and I'll get you hooked right up so we can do some positive work. All right. So Supervisor Angry, there were some laws that went into effect on July 1st in Virginia, and some of those were voting laws. Mm-hmm. And there's been some changes, and I'm sure you being an elected official, that vote is really, really.
Yeah.
We got a lot of work between now and November 3rd. And so I just want to say to the audience, there are a couple things that I'll mention. Number one, in Virginia now, the law has changed. You can do early voting by mail. It used to be absentee voting, and on that application, there were certain things that would qualify you to do absentee voting. Now you don't have to have any type of certain situation. If you choose to vote by mail, especially in this COVID-19 era that we're in, and we know November 3rd, that's going to be right in the throes of flu season. We don't know what this virus is going to do during that. So I would suggest for anybody who plans on voting for mail, please, 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 please contact your local voting registrar's office and apply now so that you can get your ballot. And I'm going to let Supervisor Angry speak to how it's being done in Prince William County. I'm not sure if you can have places where they drop these ballots off or not. So I'll let you speak to that, sir.
Yeah. And now, I can't quote those off the top of my head, but I can tell you, understand, if you want to go to the polls at your regular voting location, you can do that on election day. In addition to that, you can mail in your ballot. So there's mail-in ballots. And again, you don't have to you don't have none of those pre-qualifying tabs run there. So you can just simply, hopefully you've got that mail to you already, because you have to sign up for it to get that mail to you. And then you can just mail it back in. You can fill it out and you can also drop it off, right? You can go to the electorate office in Manassas and drop that off. If at the end of the day you don't know how you want to do this, email me or go to Prince William County website and click on elections, and it'll walk you through that process. Or just call my office or call the county so we can give you the accurate information of how you need to vote. And all of this is because of COVID-19. This COVID-19 has changed the way we do just about everything. And so, I want you to understand that part. Just know that these options are out there for you now because of COVID-19.
I also want to say, for any of you who have felonies and you have served your time, you've paid your restitution, you're now in good standing. Of course, your voting rights were revoked at conviction. But there is a process where you can petition the governor to get your voting rights back. And I'll tell you, you have a friendly governor in office now. So now is the time. If you go to the Virginia Secretary of the Commonwealth's website, or you can even go on Governor Ralph Northam's website, and you can search for voting right restoral. There is a whole page that they have dedicated for that. The application process is actually very easy to do. So please don't let November 3rd catch you not voting. And a lot of people don't know that. So please spread the word for any of your family or friends who have felony convictions and have lost their right to vote. There is a process to restore those rights, but the key is to get in early. Early means right now. Don't let this week pass if you have your voting rights that have been taken away and you need to get them restored. Please do that. All right. So there you go. A lot of laws. There was a big change to the law with in marijuana in Virginia. Yeah. What do you think about that, sir?
Well, again, I mean, my teenage years were the 1980s, and in the 1980s, a lot of my friends and black people got arrested and did some major time for the selling of marijuana. And so the way I feel about the marijuana laws today means that we need to be looking at those folks that are still in jail from all that time ago for marijuana, because they made it a federal offense back then. Remember, there was a drug move that was going on really in African-American neighborhoods that was insane. And so we're going to change this law now. We need to go back and look at who's still serving under marijuana and do something about that, like let them go, so I think I never thought I'd see the day that marijuana would be something that we're talking about legalizing in small petty charges. But I think it's right. I mean, I do. I mean, at this place where we are in the world, I mean, hey, I gotta say this. I don't believe you need to be in your car smoking marijuana in traffic. And I smell that stuff up and down the road, and it's just amazing how potent that is. I don't know what is that medicated. You need to have that, and you got a doctor's prescription for it. But if not, I mean, I really want us to, be more diligent, use more, kind of. I don't want to say common sense, because that's a bad word to say for that. But I wish we could really take that home just stay at home with it, if you will.
Yeah, I know people feel different ways about it, and for years I was absolutely staunch against it. I tell you, I have some different feelings about it now. Once I saw the criminal numbers, the data
Mhm.
about how this affects people of color, especially Black people, if the law was applied to the same to everyone, maybe I would feel a little differently. But until they enforce the laws equally, then hey, there it
Right.
is. There it is.
Right.
Well, Supervisor Angry, we're going to wrap up here in just a few minutes. You've been so gracious with your time. We're running up on an hour, but I did want to give you a moment to talk about your company. You do a lot of mentoring and anything else that we may not have covered.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, I put my company on hold. Did you know that being a supervisor is a part-time job? It's really not. But I do it full time, and all the other supervisors do it full time, and some of them actually have other jobs, that they have to manage. But I'm retired Army. I've actually put my leadership company on the shelf for now because I want to focus on this. This is a lot um, to grasp, and I'm one of these big people. I have to do it right the first time, so I got to get it right. So I've invested all my time in the office. I got a great staff, and so that's been my focus. But I will tell you, mentoring is still a big thing for me. So I still do that. I still work with my military guys. They still call me. Now, when I say guys, it means men and women. Okay, just I'll put that out there. But I still work with my military, and if they have I'm always going to be a soldier at heart. I'm always going to be taking care of the troops, and the troops have now become civilians. And so, if I can help you in any way, I'll do that. I did write a book, Angry Leadership. It's not because I was mad at my time in the military. It's not angry leadership. I call it 7 Guiding Principles of Leadership, and 7 things that I felt made me help me to get to the success level that I achieved by being the first African American as a command sergeant major for the entire Army National Guard. So, I'll share that with you just because it's paid for. It's each one teach one. It's the same thing that happened to me. It's mentors. I got a lot of great mentors that they're my safety net. I still reach out to them. They still ping me when they feel like I said something crazy on the board, or even this interview. I'll hear something back from one of my mentors that'll hopefully be thumbs up. It was good. But if there's some piece that need to critique, they critique me, and I'm open for that because that's what makes us better. So I just like to be a part of the growing process, and I try to share as much as I can, and I also learn as much as I can. So I'm open to information. I'm open to ideas. I'm open to hearing, thoughts, concerns, and I listen. Doesn't mean I'm always going to give you what you want, but I
That's
listen.
right. But you listen. Well, we had one viewer, Mr. Pete, who wasn't too pleased this evening. He said, rights restoration for convicted felons, legalization of marijuana, not representing your constituents very well. Well, Mr. Pete, let me say this to you, sir. Now, this is me speaking, not Supervisor Angry. I know people who in their youth committed felonies. They did big prison time, but they're my age, about to turn 50. And for the last several years, they have been tremendous members of the society, of their communities, of their churches. They're gainfully employed. Many own businesses, and they are a tremendous asset to their communities. They're adding to the tax base. I don't know how anyone could feel because a 19-year-old made a mistake, did 20 years in prison, and now for the last 10 years has been a model citizen. I don't know how anyone would want to deny their right to vote. They work, they pay taxes, they own property. I just don't understand. I'm not sure if that's exactly how you feel, but I'm just telling you how Carl Armstrong feels. And as far as the legalization of marijuana, I absolutely understand those who oppose it. I absolutely understand those who are with it. That's a personal thing. By no means at all have Supervisor Angry or myself condoned the use of marijuana. We're talking about new laws enacted in the state of Virginia. Just that simple. So there's been no condoning of it. We're just talking about the laws.
Yeah, I mean, let me chime in and thank you for your comments, Carl. I'm gonna jump right to the marijuana comment. And this really goes to some of these injustices and inequalities that we've been seeing, just not equal across this nation for hundreds of years. Right now, Colorado, who has marijuana farms, I don't see a lot of Black people on these farms, and this is that disparity. Whites have capitalized on this legalizing of marijuana. In major ways. And I'm not even saying that this thing should be about making money, because first it was about simple smoking, but I realized that's exactly where it's going to go. My concern with this whole thing has been, remember again, marijuana was huge in the 80s, and the whole 80s of Black men, I'm going to speak for Black men, was wiped out for selling marijuana. Or if they were smoking it, this new buzzword came out with the intent to distribute, which is now the same thing. Because if you had it, then clearly you were selling it too. And that just added on more time to your charge. But now we're sitting here talking about legalizing. Didn't benefit, I just want to be honest, it didn't benefit any Blacks to really legalize it, because half of them are in jail anyway. But we're in a new day now. And so I'm open to the conversation, because if that needs to clean up the books and bring some equality to this whole race divide that we've been seeing, then I think it's a road worth going down. So
wonderful. I'm going to address one more thing with that, because I don't think I was clear. And I say this to Mr. Mesa and those who may think he just made a comment about degradation of family values. I don't at all condone the use of marijuana, except for those who have been prescribed for medical situations. That's between your physician and yourself. But I remember, I'm a child of the 80s too, Supervisor Angry. And I remember there were just as many of our white brothers and sisters who used marijuana as it was for the Black brothers and sisters. But the Black brothers and sisters lived in communities that were much heavily policed than the white communities, and the white brothers and sisters families had access to much better legal representation. So you look at and the data right now today says that there is equal use amongst Blacks and whites, but Blacks are apprehended more often, are arrested more often, are tried more often, and serve much harsher penalties. So that, sir, is not a morality issue. That's a legal issue. And so many families taught great family values. But at some point, your teenage children, your young adult children will make their own decisions. What we're saying is we don't want to see a life snuffed out. A generation of young Black men were wiped out because of drug issues. A whole generation. And it has helped cause a problem in the Black community. And that's another reason why they're marching. That's another reason why we're fighting for equality. So I hope Mr. Mesa and those who may agree with Mr. Mesa, I hope this conversation sheds some light. Sometimes we need to understand that the scriptures tell us, and all that get an understanding. We may not agree, but hopefully there is an understanding. And that's why we have these conversations. So Supervisor Angry, I am so thankful. The audience, I'm sure, is thankful for you sharing this time. You are welcome to come back on this platform at any time, and the other platform too. So once again, just thank you so much. You didn't have to do it, but you did. I'm gonna give you a moment for any closing comments.
Yeah, well, I just want to simply thank you. This is great. I really enjoyed being on the show, and I don't know where an hour went, but I could do this for another hour with you. But we'll save that for the next time. Okay. So again, thank you for having me on your show.
All right, audience, you heard him. He said we'll save it for the next time. Thank you guys so much. Heart for the community. You are awesome. We thank you so much for joining. We thank all of you who shared this, who started a watch party. God bless you for doing that. Once again, if you have not already went to the Heart for the Community page and liked and or followed, this is your opportunity to do so. For those who want to follow me personally, you can do so on my Facebook page at Carl Armstrong. This has been another installment of the Heart for the Community Initiative interview series. We are so honored to have had Supervisor Victor S. Angry with us. He has done a tremendous job, and we'll be praying for you. We'll be praying for you that you continue to do all the good work that you're doing. And as a former Army non-commissioned officer, I say thank you, Sergeant Major, for those 23 years of service and all those years of leadership as a non-commissioned officer as you rose through the ranks. I appreciate it, and I'm sure many of our viewers do also. So, Heart for the Community, until next time, may God bless you and may heaven smile upon you. We'll see you sometime soon. Bye-bye.